Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to be talking to another Chris. My standard joke is I've never met a Chris I didn't like.
Exactly right. I call it the Chris hive mind. So,
Oh, so it is? Okay,
yeah,
so you
yeah,
see
yeah.
it too. There's like a natural sort of, I don't know, like a bow or a grace that I meet when I meet another Chris. It might be the Christ conscious thing of Christopher. I don't know, but
Right, yeah.
we're all heartfelt in that way. I've been really getting to know your stuff in the last few weeks, ever since your name was brought up. And I myself grew up in a tarot life. My mom would do my cards all the time as a kid. I'm terrified of the Tower card, for instance, and they were always dead spaking on. I really love your approach, man. I can see in your chart where it may come from. You've got this like Pisces vision, but you got a lot in Capricorn. So it's you come with like practical advice. Tell me the story of how you got on this path of being an on-camera tarot reader. How'd that
Yeah,
happen?
it's a long story, but it started when I was younger. My grandma, she actually told me I was an Aquarius. I was probably, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years old when she told me that. That's like my earliest astrology memory, but I think that kickstarted it. I pretty much have been into just like weird stuff, anything esoteric, aliens, Bigfoot, all the good stuff forever. So yeah, then long story short, I had a business failure when I was younger, and I was sitting around in my room for a good 4 years just staring at a wall, pretty much doing nothing. But I was actually doing stuff. I was learning, I was listening to a lot of stuff, but I've always been into cards, always been into tarot, never read professionally like before I started the channel really, but I did read, just screwing around with the cards. Then one day my mom came in my room and she said, "Hey, why don't you start a tarot channel?" And that was it. I literally started it that night. So that's how I started.
Really? You just
Yeah,
did
yeah.
it.
Just
That's
did it. Yeah.
amazing. And how did you come up with the brand Minnow Pond? It's an interesting, it feels very tactile. There's something very real about it.
The funny thing about that is that was another business. After I had the business failure, I had an idea to knock off Groupon. I don't know if you remember Groupon.
Oh yeah, I do.
So I started a company called Minnow Pond. It was just Minnow Pond. It wasn't Minnow Pond Tarot, obviously. But the reason I used that is because I didn't know what I wanted to call it. I loved that logo. I had a good friend of mine who I worked with for a long time created that logo for me, and I loved it. I didn't want to get rid of it, and so I was like, oh, I'll just use it for this tarot channel, and the rest is history. People always think there's something like some weird thing with the name, but that's really it. It was just the name of another company, and I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to get rid of it. I wanted to keep it.
It really works. It's very memorable. I think you downloaded that vision. And of course, you being a Pisces, I can't help but think that you would be
Yeah,
able
and the two fish that are in it. So
yeah,
that
exactly.
also.
There's a little bit of nod and a wink there going on. Although I ran your chart, thank you for your stats. That Aquarius rising and Mercury in Aquarius, I can see where you would believe that you were an Aquarius for years growing up because you have a
Yeah,
lot of that in you. Yeah, it
definitely.
seems like you're a wizard that talks to God. Is the way I look at your chart.
Yeah, that would be a creepy way. I like that.
That's pretty much it is. It seems like a conversation with God. And I noticed right away, I mean, your readings are like instantaneous. Like you
Hmm.
are coming down with the meaning before the card hits the table. You're already describing it. It looks like you looked at it for a fraction of a second. So I'm guessing that you are a bit of a channel. What are your intuitive psychic abilities?
Yeah, I consider what I do channeling. I just get out of the way. Like I just said to you, if I think about it, nothing comes out. If I just get out of my own way and just let it come through, then the right things seem to come out. So I call it spewing, actually, which is weird, but I just don't.
Spewing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I let the words come out. I don't even think about it. I just, like I said, get out of my own way.
When did you really trust that? Because I know I myself remember when I used to do readings in the very beginning, I would print out a 10-page packet on them and do all this research. And then I get to the reading, I'd be nervous for about 10 minutes and all of a sudden the spewing would take over. How'd you come into that confidence and trust?
I did a bunch of readings when I started the channel for people. I think that really helped doing more people because what ended up happening is I would do these readings, I would think something, I wouldn't say it. And then the people would come back to me and they would say something that I remembered thinking during the reading. I remember it popping into my head. I remember distinctly this lady, I was like reading for her and I was like, oh, this lady, she wants to start her own hair salon. And I thought I didn't say it in the reading. And then she told me after what she was doing. And she said this whole thing about hair salon. And I was like, oh my God, like I should have just listened to myself and just let it out. I think of life as like experiments. Everything I do, I'm always correcting. I'm always looking for correction. So I think just naturally I just started, I was like, okay, stop doing that. Stop not saying it and just say what you think.
Yeah. Was there ever like a ludicrous final test of that you saw or thought something that just seemed insane and you put it out there?
I remember talking about Neptune and Pisces in 2016. I've been trying to find the video because I literally said something about having to do with the disease coming to the world. I mean, to me, it was obvious at the time because I was just thinking about Neptune and Pisces. And I can't remember exactly the connection I made, but in a live, I said that. I actually put a bounty out for anyone who can find that video because I can't remember exactly where it is, but I want it because it was like, I literally said that there would be a disease coming. I remember I was specifically worried about 15 degrees for some reason. But yeah.
That's interesting. I could feel, flipping to COVID, I could feel something dark and luminous on the
Yeah.
horizon. I kept telling people, I don't know what this is. I don't know. I have no idea what it is, but it feels really dark. And I could feel the Saturn Pluto conjunction in January 2020 was basically it. And that turned out to be really patient zero of the United States anyways, right around that conjunction. Everyone's worried about impeachment, but I felt something much darker on the horizon. Are you in contact with your guides in the sense of by name or personality or familiarity, or is there an angel that you work with specifically?
No, I call it a shamanistic approach, so I don't allow things into my space. Not that I'm against it or anything, just how I read, just how I learned how to read, taught myself and everything. So I never really ended up working with one of my guides or anything.
So you're just doing a flat wizard download from the universe,
Yeah,
is what
just
you
a
feel like.
Yeah, straight download. I've had some weird experiences. I got attuned for Reiki, and there were these candles around me, and they were like flickering. And the lady that attuned me was like, "Oh, all your guides are here and stuff." But I've never really tried to tap in.
Yeah, interesting. And that's interesting. That's very Aquarius, I think. That's
Yeah, yeah.
seems very Aquarius. Aquarius, I don't care. I just want to get to the magic and the metaphysics and not necessarily anything pre-incarnate. So that makes sense. Are you a psychic empath in the sense that while you're taping, do you feel the audience? You stream live, don't you?
Yeah, sometimes I go live. Lately, I just do premieres for the videos. But yeah, that's how I read. I try to put myself in their shoes, the person I'm reading for. And yes.
And do you feel them? Do you feel them while you're taping? I guess is what I'm asking. Can you feel their reactions or
No, I wouldn't say, I don't think I can feel their reactions. Maybe if I thought about it while I was doing it, maybe I would say, oh yeah, I am feeling something. There are definitely times where I'm like, I make a joke. I think I made a joke a couple weeks ago. I can't remember whose video it was in, but I was like, I know what you're thinking, because I remember saying something and I felt like somebody was like, oh no, I want to go do XYZ. Sometimes I'll call people out.
Got you. Yeah, I have the same thing where I'll have a telepathic reaction and I
Yeah.
used to ignore it, and then I'd see in the comments, I'd be like, oh man, I felt that person's comment. And then later, so now I just go ahead and say, okay, I'm picking up on what he was like right now, writing a nasty comment. Let me just tell you, that's very interesting. Do you have a wizard theory? Tarot is one of those things where you just got to experience it for yourself to see that it's accurate. Do you have a working wizard theory on how it works?
Yeah, I think that people who are meant to watch it at the time, maybe it's like a law of attraction thing, or they're just guided to watch the advice at the time.
Yeah, I certainly felt that. Of course, I love being in the seat of my viewers because I'm like, he's just doing this for me. He's talking straight to me, but it's for the entire Taurus spectrum. And I have to just say, I just saw your recent Taurus videos preparing for this, just to be up on stuff. And it was just strikingly on, man. It was so good.
Thanks.
You do great at coaching too. You're not just throwing down the cards. You have this other part of you that's guiding and coaching and teaching as well. Where does that wisdom come from? Is that channeling as well? Or is that just trial and error, your Capricorn energy?
Yeah, I'd say both. Like I said, I suffered for 4 years, and really it just comes from a place of like, I don't want anyone to have to go through that, just staring at a wall, feeling hopeless, lost, not having answers. And, I spent that 4 years learning as much as I can and actually putting stuff into practice. So it's all real world stuff. I think that my advice is like the best advice from so many successful people that I've learned from.
It seems like you are an avid student of success. I also noticed that you are really strong coach of manifestation. You had a few little sidebars where you're talking about the power to manifest and law of attract. That seems like a talent that you also have. Obviously, you're doing quite well for yourself and you made this into a success, but it's interesting that you bring in that manifestation coaching. Does that come from trial and error as well?
Yeah, and I think we're in a time where we have to change our stories. I'm a big fan of, that's how I changed my life. I was stuck, even the channel I have, I always say was stuck at 40,000 for a long time, and people were blowing by me. People had started like, I'd already had my channel for 4 years, and there were channels that had like just started that had 100,000. Then I was like, okay, what is the story that I'm telling myself? And I've literally changed my life just by the words I use. That's what I want to tell people.
Yeah. I think it's very powerful. You are 5-degree Pisces, and from my school of thought, that's a Mercury-based Pisces. So I can see where that story you tell yourself is so powerful. So that's your biggest piece of advice, is to change the story you tell yourself in your head.
Yeah, and like I still script every single day. Like I always say, whether you think it's law of attraction or not, even if you don't believe in law of attraction, I think it's a super useful thing to do, to script your day or just script how you want things to go, just even from, a mindset perspective.
So you literally, at the beginning of the day, you say to yourself, you have intentions in your mind that you set out to see those intentions fulfilled.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I do it at night. I know there are a lot of teachers out there that say do it at the beginning of the day or whatever. I always do it before I go to bed, and I just write how I want things to go. Sometimes I always tell people, like, I don't pick a time frame. Some days I'll be like tomorrow. Sometimes it'll just be about a certain thing that I want to happen in my life. And so it's pretty loose, and I just write whatever I feel like it. People always say like how long. I'm always like, some days I write a paragraph, some days it's pages and pages.
So you write it down literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Yep. I use it.
Yeah.
I actually just do it on an iPad. I just write right on there.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have something in our service called a sleep intention, and I'm on the same page as you. I feel like if you go to bed, it's sort of with an intention in your mind, falling asleep, there's something mystical, magical that happens in that 12th house journey.
Yeah.
And I find that I forget sometimes because I'm so tired by the time I get to the time in
Yeah.
the day, but I do see the power of that. I love that you're astrological based. And I think, I don't know where it started. When I was on YouTube, there was no other astrologers, there's no tarot readers or anything. And this idea of reading tarot for a sign seems to be invented by you and your generation of tarot readers. Like, it wasn't when I was growing up, that's not how it was. My mom would point out different signs, like you got a Pisces around you, watch out, that type of thing. How did you come into the astrological perspective? It sounds like it was an equal influence in your life.
Yeah, so for the channel itself, I started reading for the signs because I think there were like a couple channels that when I started, and that's what they were doing. So I just started doing what they were doing, and it made sense to me because I was like, oh, this will make it more specific. Even I did it for the deacons for, I think it was my second year. I broke it down into each deacon as well to make it more specific, but that was like way too much work. So I didn't go any further than that. But yeah, that's how it started.
You did like Pisces first deacon, Pisces
Yeah,
second deacon, Pisces third deacon.
yeah, all the way.
12 is already tough, but
12 is
36
way,
is yeah.
yeah, way too much.
Yeah, I started my career doing 12 horoscopes on video a day, 5
Yeah,
days a week, 60
yeah,
videos a week. It
crazy.
was just super ambitious, set in the tent, but it did not turn out. Do you find that astrology affirms what the tarot cards are saying, or do you find that it leads, or is it both?
Yeah, I think both. Sometimes I read and I'm like, oh, this is so obvious to me. This is exactly what's going on. And then other times I do think that there are things that lead in the astrology.
Yeah. But you had mentioned in a recent video, my producer was telling me that the full moon in Pisces, you couldn't sleep for 3
Yeah.
days.
Normally I'm okay during the full moons, but I don't know what it was with that one, but I could not sleep. Yeah.
That was a tough full moon, man.
Yeah.
I think it was the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde,
Yeah.
like all the planets retrograde, and a full moon in Pisces, like exposing all your subconscious junk in your trunk.
Yeah,
Like, it
of
was
course.
tough.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I was like trying to sleep and I was like thinking about all these things, like just random past stuff. And I think that's what it was.
Thanks for that affirmation. I think you're the only Pisces I've spoken to since then, so I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
I have a personal belief that Pisces are past their karma and onto their greatest gifts. I personally believe with Neptune moving through your sign, this is going to be the moment where Pisces lead spiritually instead of fumble with past life karma stuff. It seems like you certainly seem to be a leader. I hear you bringing up Neptune and Pisces a lot. What is your perspective or vision of it? What do you see through the cards?
So I don't know why I became obsessed with Neptune and Pisces because
It seems like it.
yeah,
You bring it up a lot.
it's one of those things where, I think that it's a major like tipping point in, I think there's a couple that Uranus and Taurus, I think Uranus and Taurus is weird to me because it's like super innovative, or at least I see it that way, like in regards to freedom, like people setting themselves free. But Neptune and Pisces, we're in this time where I believe we're breaking free from all these beliefs. There's traditional beliefs. And I think at the simplest level, Neptune and Pisces is a direct challenge to traditional belief. Like if you've always believed something, Neptune and Pisces is like, why? Is there something else? Is there something better?
Yeah, you seem really interested in the power of belief as well.
Yeah.
And Uranus and Taurus is fascinating too. I think it's an interesting time. The freedom thing is a fascinating takeaway that I agree with, but didn't really recognize until I saw you talk about it. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. And I think back to World War II, there was a fight for freedom and freedom of the world. But also then Uranus has that utopia, dystopia flip of the coin. So I also see this huge push to take away freedom as well as a certain theme. Given that you're throwing down the cards all the time, are you catching themes going on in the collective conscious? Can you think of a theme right now that's pretty big in your cards?
I always say like Two of Swords, third place solutions, I call it. Two of Swords is like this or that, but she has that island behind her. And I always say that she is my card of third place solutions. Everybody thinks this or that to solve problems, but I think it's those like left field things that are gonna maybe save the day, so to speak, right now.
So is it the thing that you overlooked, or it's the abstract thing, or?
I think it's like abstract. I have a theory of these, what I think is I say the currency of the future. And so like one of the things that I think will be very valuable in the future is people who are able to curate information, put things together. And there's a great author, James Altucher, he talks about idea sex, like two great ideas coming together. So I feel there will be a lot of, if you have a crazy idea, I don't even know what it looks like. Most people, I think these will be very unique solutions to problems, or not even problems, like good stuff that's happening, just new ways of doing things.
And you may be predicting Uranus and Gemini too.
Yeah, that too. Yep.
I can see that logical consequence coming right around the corner.
Hmm.
So on the contrary, what do you mean by stinking thinking?
You know, I mean, like,
It's a term I've heard you say. Yeah.
yeah, just negative thinking. You know, I always say no stinking thinking. And I always tell people, like, I think between now and like 2033, there's going to be plenty of stuff to worry about. But you can be one of the people who worries, or you can be one of the people who gets there and has done something.
What side of the coin are you on as far as our future? It looks like obviously we do the best we can to predict, but things look bleak. It looks like
Mhm.
we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Do the cards point to options ahead for us?
I think there are a lot of options. I always point to like Louise Hay. She says you have to see the dirt on the ground before you can sweep it up. And I think we're in that dirt sweeping phase. You know, of course, we have to see all these things before we clean up the dirt, right?
So basically, God is showing us, the universe is showing us all the stuff we have to clean up.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a lot of empty space that people should be filling. There's a lot of bad ideas right now, but you know, I think the solutions are going to come from us people, not like the government or anything like that. So I always tell people, like, fill it with your good ideas. That's where it's going to come from.
I'm in complete concert with you on that, sir. And one of my biggest takeaways watching your videos this week, where you inspired me or affirmed for me what I've been sensing, which is that God does have a plan. It's you.
Yeah, it's you, right? Yeah.
That's why you came down, and it's waiting. And I think in an interesting way, it's Pluto and Capricorn. Last time was the American democracy. The democratic model was there. Freedom of rights came out for the first time. And now in this next Pluto revolution, it's like we've already given the freedoms. I think now it's about what does the population do with those freedoms? Like, one, you were granted them. Now it's up to us. I feel it seems like.
Yeah, I think, and I also think of Pluto and Aquarius. Aquarius is a circulatory system, and that's why I say we're like in a heart-based time, even though it's not necessarily the heart. I don't know, there's something there that always pops into my head, and it's something that's been coming up so much in the readings as well, is really like that we're in this heart-based time. We need to follow our heart. Everybody knows what to do. They just have to do it, right?
I agree. I honestly think the Venus retrograde strictly through Leo for the first time since 1812 and 1722 was a major change of the heart. We talk about conspiracies. I think God has been conspiring for our happiness the whole time.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be a total setup for success.
Yeah, of course.
Really, we seem to be the ones in the way. Yeah, I was watching one of your segments for Taurus, and you said you had a beef with the Knight of Pentacles. What's your beef with the Knight of Pentacles?
My beef with the Knight of Pentacles is that he doesn't move. He's the only knight in tarot. Even all the knights represent movement, and they all also represent fire as well. I know everybody splits them out into earth, all the elements and everything, but every knight is fire. And he's the only one that's not moving. He has all this knowledge and wisdom. He's got those oak leaves on his helmet, which represent knowledge and wisdom, but he's not moving. So it's like he has all the tools. He has everything he needs. And an empty blank canvas. He's got the empty field behind him, but he's not doing anything with it.
That's interesting. And I assume I've seen you associate signs with cards. I myself am not that well versed with the tarot deck, so I'm not sure. But what sign is the Knight of Wands associated with?
He is, so I just say Earth in general. So, you know, I always just read him as just Earth in general.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Certainly feels very Taurus.
Yeah.
Opportunity and not moving.
Yeah, exactly. I always read the King of Pentacles as Taurus. He is Taurus, but yeah, he very Taurian for sure.
King of Pentacles is Taurus. What would be the Capricorn sign? You have some Capricorn in your chart.
Yeah, Queen of Pentacles.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. Does the male female gender change between King and Queen mean something in the tarot? Does it translate to yin yang? Is it literally?
Yeah, you could read it as energy, or I just look at it as like a journey. It's just the next step. And so the queens are kind of the creation, and just like the emperor and the empress, there's water behind the emperor that goes to the empress. So it's like his energy feeds her in a way. And I always look at, you know, the kings and the queens as like kind of their energy feeding each other.
Oh, interesting. Completing each other in a way too.
Yeah.
That basic need between yin and yang, basically.
Yep.
You no longer do personal readings. May I ask why?
Yeah, just a time issue. You know, even I was doing them years ago and I raised my price crazy high and I still couldn't keep up, you know, with the amount of videos I do. And plus I have other stuff I work on, you know, it's just impossible to keep up.
Got you. When you were doing readings, and I know it's the same way, like I'm a person that can only do so many because of the time commitment, but I also need to do them to keep my skills sharp, I find too. But you're doing cards, you know.
Yeah, daily.
Yeah, you do. Literally, just so everyone knows, you have your schedule is like a weekly schedule, a monthly schedule, a quarterly schedule. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Are you noticing trends happening from quarter to monthly to weekly, just again and again coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, Two of Swords, Seven of Pentacles always stands out to me because I think we're in a time where the universe is saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is what I always say. Are you doing something? Do you have the leverage? Are you getting leverage? I think leverage is a big word that people should focus on right now. Are you being super efficient? I think, if you're doing things that are wasting your time or sucking your energy or whatever, that's like a big theme that I've been seeing.
I noticed that with the leverage. I was trying to think and translate that into astrology. And the only thing I can really think of is it's kind of Uranus. Uranus always seems to me pushing more for less, to be
Yeah.
more efficient, to choose the innovative path that gets three birds in one, versus one.
Yeah.
But I noticed that you were talking about that a lot, the leverage point. That really good advice, I think, as well. So having doing the cards for all 12 signs all the time, if I met you in public or something and I said I was a Taurus, would you immediately have cards come up in your head and be like, oh Lord?
Yeah, I would probably, because I think, Taurus always gets like Queen of Pentacles. I'm always talking about resourcefulness for Taurus, being super resourceful at this time, watching your resources. I'm always talking about freedom for Taurus, always talking, Queen of Cups always pops up for Taurus. I'm always thinking about, again, following your heart, what is free. I get this waiting thing for Taurus sometimes where it's almost like, you're just like waiting to enter into something, but, it's like you're waiting for a sign or a symbol or something, but you just have to take that leap of faith.
Oh, I know, buddy. I know. I feel like I'm always waiting in line.
Yeah.
Sometimes that waiting just was like I was waiting for the opportunity or waiting for but we're constantly in waiting. But part of that waiting, I think, is also what draws in our opportunities. Like we'll sit there and we will not move until that comes, unless you cow tip us or whatever. I noticed in watching your videos that you use many decks in your readings, which is interesting. I want to ask you about that. And it seems like you have your own layout. Is that a layout that you designed or came up with or channeled?
Yeah, just like just how it happened. I don't even remember. I think when I first started, I was doing like 7 cards. That's it. And then, I just kind of was looking for something more in depth. So I originally started doing, it started as past, present, future, outcome, which I still do sometimes. So each column, was past, present, future, outcome. And then I just started attaching just whatever popped into my head. Like I sit down here, I have a note and I write down whatever I think. So sometimes it's messages from your future self or whatever. And so I just started doing that.
Yeah, I noticed that you would come up with different angles. And some of your videos are different angles. A message from your future self is really clever as well. And I noticed that you have one deck lays out the cards. You did another deck that was crossing the cards. What's that crossing layer, if I may ask?
Yeah, so I just like to clarify the whole entire message. When I go back over, I'm just clarifying everything.
So it's a second look at, but from a different deck,
Yep.
basically. And you had like circle cards, which I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I went to minnowpond.com, your Minnow Pond website for your tarot, and you had 20 different affiliate decks basically there that you're involved with. Do you work with that many decks yourself?
Yeah, I have like, I wish I had this camera on because I would turn it on, but I have a whole huge stack over here. Tons and tons of decks. So way more than 20. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm very curious. I bought different decks before. I'm a novice at pulling cards for myself. What comes differently with a different deck?
Yeah, I think better, like different messages. Some, there's some that I really like. I have a lot that I don't use, but like Golden Tarot, for example, is one of my favorites, although I never use it anymore because it just has better, I don't know, some of the imagery is different, makes me channel different things. Lately, for the past few years, I've only pretty much been using the Radiant Rider-Waite for whatever reason. It's just been my favorite. That's what I use.
So it comes down to what you feel an affiliation for. I noticed that you're really good on the symbolism and the imagery in the cards. You're often citing that imagery. I would assume the different cards have different imagery, or do they all usually have the same imagery from a different perspective?
Some of them are super different, like not even close to the original Rider-Waite, and then some are pretty close.
It seems like there's a real story behind each card that you're also aware of, that you're telling a certain narrative.
Yeah, like I follow the Fool's journey. So the Fool has a journey through the major arcana. And so whenever, the major arcana, I think there is a pretty solid story. And then the court cards are just I kind of look at them as support.
So you also seem to have these underlying themes. And what would you say the underlying theme is for people's mission right now on Earth?
Yeah, I think that to live in happiness, joy, move towards their desire. I think we live in a time where it's like everybody is still like, I think I always look at these things. I kind of have weird ideas about this. I have to process my thoughts on this, but I look at things like COVID, which took people out of work. And I'm like, okay, what is the universe like really saying to us? And so I think it's saying that it wants people to be more free, like I said, do things that they desire to do, not necessarily jobbing. I mean, obviously, we're still going to have people who do desire to do whatever their job is. but for the most part, do they complain or are they happy that they have to go to work? So I think that's where we're headed.
That's interesting. I had the same takeaway too. It's like America's all based on working our butt skis off
Hmm.
and giving up all of our personal life for our career. And boy, did that bubble pop
Yeah.
with COVID, like suddenly Americans are like, I don't feel like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're being raised to be, so I don't, in that way, I wonder, like, if there was intent behind it, it might have backfired. But I've noticed that I noticed the same thing. I look at Aquarius as the opposite of Leo. I look at
Mhm.
Leo as our heart's intention. Aquarius is where that heart's intention belongs in the universe. So I've personally seen Pluto moving to Aquarius. To me, it's like a calling to follow our hearts. That's certainly a theme I have seen. But it's interesting to say that you're on the same thing. How do you interpret a card falling out of a deck? That was a friend of mine who does tarot wanted me to ask you that question.
Yeah, I personally don't read that. I personally don't take pop outs. I'm like a super butterfingers anyway, so I'm always dropping stuff. I don't think it's not something that I read into too much. Like I said, if readers want to read, I know some readers like shuffle until cards pop out and just how they read.
I've seen it in a couple of videos before, and I had never even
Mhm.
thought of that. When I've had a couple of readings too, it'll pop out and they'll say, "Oh, here's a comment from the guides or whatever." And usually it's darn accurate, so it's pretty funny. Do you do your own cards and read your own
Uh,
self?
no, the way I was taught to is to not read for yourself, so I just don't. And again, I know plenty of people that do, so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just don't.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, as an astrologer, sometimes people know my chart better than I do.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's right. It isn't at that degree. I completely forgot because I'm so focused on it for the world or whatever. Do you go back and watch your Pisces video or your Aquarius video and go, oh my gosh, that's exactly where I'm at?
No, I have, and I like I said, I try to actively take, I make sure I take myself out of my readings for the most part. They rarely, sometimes something will come up, but I also don't like listening to myself talk. I don't really go back and watch them too much.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I understand. Plus, I have a Leo rising, so I'm more inclined to that probably than the average person. Like, I fully admit that. And you have an aqua rising, right?
Yeah,
So that's literally the opposite of me. And that way we're opposites in that direction.
yeah.
What do you recommend to someone who wants to, do you recommend a person reads for themselves?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly acceptable, and if you can be unbiased and not look for an answer, I think that even in my I have a tarot course, and I was talking about it in there, and I think I said limit it to 3 cards. Don't pull more than that. Take the first answer. Don't look for an answer.
Yeah, I did go through one obsessive period in my life where I was throwing down cards every day of the week and I was unhappy and I was reshuffling and I was unhappy and I
Yeah,
was just seeing nothing but doom in them and like I couldn't see the bright side of things. Yeah.
exactly, and that's why I say limit it to like 3.
I did, having a mom that did tarot every day of my whole life. I did watch myself move from, like, she would say, "This is you." And I remember
Mhm.
being a page and then I became a prince and then I became a king over time. So I actually saw myself sort of evolve in her deck. Do you see evolution like that as well? Like among the signs, for instance, you're watching them growing up or watching them go through a hard time?
Yeah, so like I've noticed like trends for a long time, like Leo, for example. I remember maybe my first or second week, I had a video where I was saying something to Leo about trying new things. I still say these same things to Leo. It has never changed the whole entire time that I've been reading for almost 9 years now on this channel. I've seen so many things like that. I think of Virgo. Shout out to the Virgos, butterflies. It's just like been constant butterflies and transformations, and I literally saw them go from a caterpillar to a butterfly with the cards.
That's interesting. The North Node in Aries is now in their eighth house. So that it does
Mm,
appear from the astrological solar chart perspective that they are about to become butterflies too. And
yeah.
just they were so caught up in relationships.
Mm,
But Neptune blazing through their solar seventh, I think, has really helped them evolve out of that. So I'm excited to see where Virgos go. I mean, they're the ultimate cleaners of the zodiac, and this world's
mm.
a mess. So, like
Yeah.
you said, are there any other, since you brought up a couple other trends and signs that you might think of, just as a little piece of candy for our subscribers?
Yeah, I think of Pisces. I said to Pisces, there was something weird about, Pisces having Uranus in their second house. I had to experience that, but for whatever reason, I always think of like Uranus in the second and Aries as being the worst. So, but I always say to Pisces that, I think that Pisces was being prepared. It's funny that you said that at the beginning of this video, because, I always say to Pisces that they were being prepared to like show people what to do next. It's like you've already been through it, so now it's your job to show people what to do next.
You're seeing that in the cards. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And Chiron in their second right now is I think they're healing over those failures. I think for a lot of Pisces, like you mentioned, having a business failure. I've never met a Pisces who didn't have a failure, but
Yeah.
I personally believe that part of being a Pisces is like overcoming some of that karma and responding differently in this life than you have in another life. Do you come from a perspective of multi-lifetimes or pick up on past life energies?
I don't pick up on past lives, but I definitely believe in past lives. Definitely, believe in all that, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense too.
Does it come up in the cards, for instance? Is there like a history that comes up in a tarot card?
It's like someone's life history.
Yeah, like that they're being haunted by the past, and the
Yeah, I
planets
think.
speak to that, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that you could definitely read that way. I don't. I can't remember. It's probably come up in the past, but I definitely think there are plenty of cards where you could say, like Judgment, for example. They're literally rising out of coffins, stepping into a new life. So yeah, I think there's plenty of cards that could say that.
Got you. And I'm just wondering how it works inside yourself. Are you seeing pictures? Are you hearing words? How is it streaming for you?
I just don't pay attention to my words really. It's kind of hard to explain. I just like I say, I just leave my body. It's something that came to me. I've been doing it for a long time, so it's kind of hard to describe. But it's like I just describe it as I just move out of the way, and whatever comes out comes out.
Yeah, I've always called it like the zone, so to speak, being in
Yeah,
a certain zone. When you're in that zone, you learn to trust it, right? You
right,
simply
right.
trust it. Yeah. For some reason, my zone said to me to ask you about cancers. I don't know why.
Yeah, so Cancer, I think they have to, kind of be more bold. I see something for Cancer about needing to like expand. I do remember now because I was saying something about Cancers, start like some of them in business, for example, needing to trust themselves more to, expand into a bigger place, and but not even just in business, like all areas of their life.
Okay, interesting. And that's what the astrology is showing also, actually. I think with Uranus and there's solar 11th, I think cancers are so there's these signs that have been having a real hard luck. Pisces are one of them.
Yeah.
That's had Virgos have had a hard luck. I found a lot of Scorpios are always in thankless positions in life, or they're not being appreciated for who they are, and they're taking that very personally and sometimes bitterly. You know what I mean? But to me, as I've been evolving and watching the planets, and that's the thing. I mean, you probably have the same thing. You're watching these signs grow, like families, like races, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it seems like Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, I almost see like they're probably part of the answer that we're looking for, and they've been clearing a lot of their hard stuff because I feel like they're going to take more of a center stage going forward. That's what.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
just funny that you say that because I thinking of Scorpio, they've been getting the tower for probably 2 years with me for almost every single reading. So it makes a lot of sense with Scorpio. I mean, if there's any Scorpios watching too, that they know that they're always getting the tower.
yeah, the short end. Hey, since you bring up the topic, can you define what is the tower? Like to me, if I get that in a reading, I almost want to leave.
Yeah, I don't look at tarot as good or bad, and to me
Okay.
it's just loose guidance at best anyway. But the tower is very necessary, and the story is that the two people they've been ignoring reality, so it's a shock to the system, and they're being brought back down to reality. So it's like a good thing. It's like breaking free from the matrix, seeing reality for what it really is.
Okay. Because it seems to have always been accompanied with a shock in my life.
Yeah, it is always shock. Yeah, it is always shocking, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Another sign I think interesting is Sagittarius. I found that it's like they've always been I've seen them on the side, sort of like narrating the game, kind of, always telling the stories, bringing the links together, but not necessarily ever writing the story. And it feels like they're being called now to take charge of that narrative. Have you seen any trends in the Sag story?
So Sagittarius readings have been really positive lately, and I keep telling Sagittarius not to give up. I know that specifically. I see it's like weird how I see it in my head, but I have this like theory of circles, and there's like one main circle that you are, and there's like all these circles around it, and these circles are like they're like supporting circles, like kind of like they have spokes that go out from your main circle, and so I know this is crazy, but that's how I see Sagittarius. I think that they have like this main idea for their life, and they just need to work on all these like supporting circles that kind of go around their main circle.
That's fascinating. I fully believe in circles. I mean, what you're
Yeah.
describing to me is like the clockwork of the universe, that there are all these gears within gears. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what the planets are. They're going in circles. And that's when people ask me, every now and then I meet a person who doesn't believe in astrology, which is always a shock to my system because I'm so used to being like talking to people who believe in it. But the way I was describing is, it seems like all we do as humans is walk in circles,
Right, right.
and so astrology is real, like, where are you in the circle? And then where are
Yeah.
you in this circle, and this circle within that circle? So I'm on your circle team for sure, dude.
Cool.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's interesting, but if things are going right, just to be philosophical with you, that circle is more of a spiral staircase. Like,
Yes.
the next time you're at that place in the circle, hopefully you have a better view. Hopefully you have more wisdom there. So it seems like we're just always repeating.
I mean, I used to talk about this all the time. I used to talk about a spiral going up and, kind of drawing a line straight through it, to kind of like go up faster.
Oh, that's an interesting wizard trick. You got a
Yeah,
lot of wizard tricks.
I
Yeah,
do.
that's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. Very Merlin like. Since we've talked, I feel like we have to say something about every sign. So pardon me for putting you on the spot.
No, go
Any
for it.
thought any thoughts on Gemini? And what you've seen for Geminis?
Gemini, I think I think Gemini has to get more of their ideas out there. And
Well said.
yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Sure. I think that Gemini has to get more of their ideas out there.
That's a great, and that's really where they've failed to be on the football team of life super
Mhm.
well. Like, they've kept their ideas private. That Venus retrograde went through their solar third house, so I kind of feel like I'm waiting for Geminis to come out with some bright ideas and some solutions. And then sometimes the one in the back of the room, and it's like they'll talk your ear off if you catch them in a conversation. But the profound stuff comes out in a whisper for some reason. It's like, speak up, like
Yeah,
on the profound stuff. Yeah.
it's like
Uh,
imposter syndrome.
You think that's what it is? That's interesting. Yeah. Their Aries for their healing is in their relationship to society. So
Hmm.
I think imposter syndrome is a brilliant way to kind of phrase that and coin that. And Cancer and Geminis often get forgotten. I have to say,
Yeah,
like,
they
it's
do, right?
unfortunate, that's part of their role.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you seeing for Aries right now?
Yeah, Aries is really good as well. I'm loving it for Aries because I think Aries is kind of in a good position for leveling up. I know I say that to them like every single week right now. I see Aries just needing to kind of like maybe break free from the noise. People saying, "Oh, do this, do that." People trying to live their life for them, and just be their Aries self.
Yeah, go back. And the North Node's back in Aries for the first time since 2004, 2005. So
Yeah.
I think we're getting a new Aries. It seems like Aries are always the first ones to go out there and try something.
Hmm.
And I think some of them who are older are a little reluctant, but Chiron and Aries, I think, is really helping them to go at it one more time. So again, I think we need the Aries to be bold in this re-evolution of humanity. Like, we need them to, they have the courage to go to try for it. What about their opposite Libras? Go ahead. I'm sorry if you had another
No, I was
Aries.
just gonna say one thing on Aries is that, I always say that like what comes up for them always is that whatever they're thinking about doing with their life, it's like they've already done it. That's what I always get. It's like you've already I think Aries is a perspective thing. They need to see where like how far they've come to be able to get to the next step.
Oh, that's interesting. They have a reputation for not finishing the job too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but so you're saying they might finish it.
Yeah, I think Aries can finish it because, again, I see Aries in this like it's almost like purgatory. They're in this middle zone and, I think a lot of Aries have these big dreams, but it's that needing to say, if they could just see how much they've accomplished over the past like 8 years and how far they've come, they probably would tick over to that other side.
I agree. And they've been through it. Uranus went through their sign. I don't think there's anything harder than that, being a Taurus and having it in my sign. I mean, you had Uranus go through your sign too. That
Yeah.
was probably when you were coming into your power initially, huh?
Yeah, probably.
Probably staring at for 3 years at the wall with Uranus and Pisces, probably.
Exactly when it was, right?
Yeah, Uranus kicks your astro, man.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a wake up call. How about the Libras, the opposite of Aries?
Yeah, Libra is my sign that I'm always saying is the juice worth the squeeze. They get the Seven of Pentacles nonstop, and so I think that leverage, seeing where they're effective in life. I always say the word effectiveness to Libra, and so I think they are kind of deciding where they're effective.
Yeah, I'm saying the same stuff with the South Node in Libra right now. It's kind of like, I think Libra's egos get attached to making it work when it's really
Mm.
never been working from the beginning. And so, you know, are you getting the juice from the squeeze? That squeeze is some person, you know, that they were trying to like get to work, and they were building the bridge and doing all the work, and being let down in the end. So,
Yeah.
but ironically, the North Node's in their solar seven, so they're probably going to be switching up here as far as partnerships are concerned, from what I can tell. Did we talk about Leos yet? You basically said with Leos, it's time to change what they're doing.
Yeah, so I always tell Leo that, they always get like the Eight of Swords, for example. So it's the the battle of kind of what has always worked, needing to break free from convention. That's what I always say to Leo. And I think the 80-20 rule, or my 80-20 rule, which is 80% of the time do what works, 20% of the time try something new.
That's a good percentage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think about Leos, they have Virgo in the second solar house. So it's like they do get sort of overly attached to certain things that even sometimes don't work. It's like their devotion to it is to their detriment at sometimes. They're like more, in some ways, they're more dedicated of the heart more than any other sign, even when it's clearly not working and maybe humiliating. Like they still do it.
Yeah.
So speak to Taurus real quick. What are your thoughts on?
So Taurus, what have I been saying to Taurus? I think Taurus has been getting, the freedom thing, of course. I'm always telling them to follow their heart, and creativity comes up for Taurus all of a sudden, just like the past 3 weeks, maybe. I've noticed this, like more of a push towards getting their creative ideas out into the world.
Yeah. And I think what came up when my reading with you was leverage, leverage, leverage.
Right.
You kept telling us to leverage, and I kept thinking to myself, you really did help me think about things differently, that because we're a little stubborn.
Yeah.
We want to see through it to the end and then decide it's failed. We don't cut things early, we produce it and sell it,
Right.
yeah, kind of thing. So can you speak on Pisces being one?
Yeah, Pisces, I think, I've been telling Pisces to go, to believe in themselves, go for the gold. That really, I think Pisces can achieve a lot, their wildest dreams. I mean, I really don't think there's a better setup. Neptune, the crazy ass ideas with Neptune, and then having Saturn there, like being able to put in the work if you put in the work. Again, I think, I always say Pisces, I'm not blowing smoke here. Really, I think you could accomplish 1,000 times more than what you think you can, but the work part needs to happen.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Saturn, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think they're very blessed having the self-discipline of Saturn, which is not at all their strong suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The self-discipline. You're blessed with some
I
Taurus
am.
planets,
Yeah.
Capricorn. Yeah. Some Capricorn planets. But then also the Neptune vision of like the dreamer energy of Pisces as well.
Yeah.
How about Aquarius, your rising?
Yeah, so Aquarius always, a star card. I've been telling Aquarius to have a North Star for a long time, having that like big vision, guiding light type of thing in their life.
Yeah, I mean, and with Pluto entering, I always say we can't have the age of Aquarius without Aquariuses, and it
Right.
seems like they've been on the sidelines. They have been reluctant to use their magic. They sort of they're like an electron. They sort of blink in and out of resistant existence all the time. Like they're never really.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm getting friends with them, they're gone. They ghost
Yeah.
me. Like, so I feel like Pluto, it's an Aquarius. Like Aquarians are a little freaked out about it, but I am thanking God. It's like thank God Pluto's coming there. It's going to force you to define some of yourself and really bottle that lightning once and for all.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, I think of like I've had multiple Aquarius friends just disappear, completely. So I totally understand that.
Yeah, me too. And I think following the heart's the whole thing. That's the last thing they are is like sentimental and sappy. Like the
Yeah,
last thing
right.
they are is Leo. But I agree with you. It seems like that's going to be where they find their magic, is where they go ahead and look like whatever they're afraid of looking like.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yep.
They're going to look a little messy. They're going to be a hot mess, but they're going to be so effective. And obviously they're going to lead us into the new age.
Yeah, of
And
course.
this is a natural segue into Capricorn, because Pluto is coming out of Capricorn. They've just been beaten to death since 2008. They're in their final beating now. I think there's one more beating next year. Like
Yeah.
it's going to go into Aquarius and Capricorn one more time.
One
What
more
have you
time.
been
Yeah.
seeing with and I've every Capricorn client I have has just been digging those goat heels in every step of the way. I think making it harder just for their insistence to try to make the old way work. What have you seen?
Yeah, so that, and I also say education. I mean, Saturn, when Saturn was in Capricorn, I always would get these messages about education, like self-education for Capricorn for whatever reason. So I was always telling them to educate themselves, and then it kept coming up, and I was like, oh yeah, Pluto is there too. So maybe that's triggering self-education for whatever reason.
That's interesting. Uranus and Jupiter are now in their fifth house, or solar fifth house. So I find Capricorns for the first time becoming conscious capitalists. I mean, they've always been the diehard
Yeah.
capitalists, but I've really seen a shift in the Capricorns becoming more conscious, wanting their money and their power to go to something else other than money and power per se, which I know
Hmm.
is cliche, but I always looked at Capricorns as sort of like the monopoly guy.
Yeah.
Um, and now we're seeing a monopoly guy with a magic wand, or doing something like a salon or something that helps people. I've noticed.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and fighting, but still fighting that last bitter end. you
Yeah,
know
of course.
yeah, exactly, which is what they're stable, and God bless them for being so stable. I think we've hit all the signs. Do you
Yeah,
have memory? I think we
I
did.
think we did. Yeah.
Would you be willing to pull a card for the audience that's watching right now, or
Yeah, of
whatever you
course.
like to pull?
I'm
I'm
gonna use
curious.
I'm gonna use a not ride or wait. How's that?
Whatever you want,
Can
Mr.
we do
Wizard.
that? All
Yeah.
right. So I'm gonna use this is the Day of the Dead tarot. So that's what we'll use. We'll use so we'll ask what's going on for everyone in the chat right now. So we have the we have the Ten of Swords here, which would be some sort of ending or something. But really, I look at the Ten of Swords as a blessing in disguise. He's normally he's on the ground making a symbol with his hands. It's the same symbol that the high, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera, but he's making the same symbol that the Hierophant is making. On this one, it's this moth, but I kind of feel like there are blessings in disguise. Let's pull another card just to we can't end on that note,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
Six of
with every
Cups, which
ending is a
is
beginning.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have the Six of Cups, which is a turnaround. Six of Cups everybody reads as like the past. But to me, really, the like true meaning of the Six of Cups is it's like a gift from the universe, and it can represent a time where you're bumping up against an obstacle, funny, needing to let something that's dead go. I always say this guy is dead on the Ten of Swords. It's something that's dead, done over with, and Six of Cups is like that turnaround moment of having a turnaround in life.
Interesting. So it sounds like a sacrificial killing in order for in order for the turnaround.
I wouldn't say like I always look at Ten of Swords not really as a sacrifice because it is a dead, rotting corpse. It is something that stinks that needs to leave your life in the first place.
So is that like a relationship or a job? How does
It
that
could
play out?
be, yeah. I mean, I would say that it's anything I think that intuitively it's the things that are holding you back. And that's like another theme that's come up like crazy is letting go of bad habits, letting go of things that you need to let go of, which could be people, places, things, pretty much anything. And I do think we're in this like shedding period.
I agree. The planets show it too. And I feel like Pluto in the last degrees of Capricorn is sort of like, one thing about Capricorn energy is that like it holds on to the last minute. So I think
Yeah,
like once Pluto leaves Capricorn for good, we're going to see like this, like a rubber band snapping back.
release. Yeah,
We're going to see all these change happen, like what appears to be overnight. Which I imagine what the country went through when Pluto went from in the Revolutionary War, there's quite a sudden change, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of shedding in the planets as well. Terrific. So this has gone by so quickly, Chris.
yeah,
I love
crazy.
this time with you. I always love time with Chris's in general, but you really take the cake, brother.
Oh, thank you.
Any parting words of wisdom for the audience?
Yeah, I always encourage people to, change their story. So I'd say, start using better words for yourself.